Hello, good Woch, everyone. Motzei Shabbos Agodol, gewaltige stuff. Shabbos Agodol is called Agodol L'Shem Nes, miracle. And so, what was the miracle? The miracle, excuse me. Miracle was that the Jewish people in Mitzrayim tied the lemela to the legs of the bed for 4 days, because every korban had to be checked for 4 days to make sure that it has no imperfections. And after that, there was shechna for Pesach. Now, the lamb was the idol of Egypt. Apparently, Dafka, 1-year-old lamb, because you see, the Parah had, Ikne, Bakar, this, that. So apparently, I'm not sure, but I assume that. But nevertheless, the Egyptians that asked them, they heard the lambs, and they asked him, what is this? What is this sound that we hear? So they said, these are the lambs that we tied to the legs of the beds. So the Egyptian would ask them, why are you doing that? This is because we're going to slaughter this lamb for Korban Pesach. And the Egyptians, that was their idols. And they were extremely upset about it, but they couldn't do anything. There's an Indian that every Yom Tov, all the Yom Tovim, all the Kedusha of all the Yom Tovim always emanates from the Shabbos, B'chlal, emanates from Shabbos, the Kedusha of Shabbos, and specifically every Yom Tov emanates from the Shabbos before it, which means that the Kedushas Pesach emanated from the Shabbos Agodol. Which means even though the Yeshuas Hashem Pesach was totally a Kodesh Baruch Hu did everything, nevertheless, it's something that needed to be done by us. It's called Isarusa del Tata, an awakening from below, that enables afterwards the Yeshua. And this is a very important lesson for all of us about Shabbos Agodol. What kind of initiative you have to show before you get delivered. Now, you have to picture what was going on Shabbos Agodol. This happened in Mitzrayim. And it happened while Bnei Israel was still slaves, officially slaves to Mitzrayim. The last 6 months of when we stayed in Egypt, we didn't work anymore, while the 10 Makkos was taking place. But nevertheless, the idea of Yetzias Mitzrayim was not merely to physically take Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. That is not enough. the main thing was to take Am Yisrael spiritually, mentally, out of state of slavery in Mitzrayim. You can see that all the nations that used to be slaves, and for some historical reasons, they were made free, have never really recovered from the experience of being slaves. There's certain aspects to their slavery that hasn't changed. And we're talking about generally, we're talking about every single individual. But as a general, as a species, as it were, you see that they still have not recovered mentally from the state of mind of slavery. So they exhibit many slave-like characteristics, such as they want somebody else to come and save them, take care of them. They are happy with hefker, with lawless behavior. Can sire many children and they just get up and leave. And all kinds of slave-like behavior, because mentally they were not freed. Physically they were free. And the Sarusa del Tasa, the effort that we need to do before any kind of deliverance, that's true today also, not just about Yetzias Mitzrayim, is that we have to go against the fear. The reign of Paroi over the Eden was a reign of fear. Am Yisrael and Paroi and his ministers scared the Jews to such an extent that they couldn't do anything. There were enough Jews in Mitzrayim to have, I don't know how many kehillas, and to have an unbelievable influence over the culture and the spirituality of the land. But they could do none of it because they were under the rule of the terror of Paroi and his ministers. People wonder, how come the Jews in Europe went like lamb to slaughter under Hitler? And it's not only the Jews. All the nations under Hitler were afraid to move. It's because the Kodesh Baruch Hu at the time gave him Yimach Shemoi, the koyach, to instill unbelievable terror in everybody's hearts that they didn't dare revolt. So the first enachinami, to actually take one out of slavery, it has to be a Kodesh Baruch Hu taking us out of Mitzrayim. We cannot take ourselves out of Mitzrayim. Nobody can free us. Some other king from a different kingdom conquering Egypt and says, something, you Jews, you can go free, or whatever, Israel, whatever you call it, you can go free. That wouldn't help. Mishmoch himself has to take us out of Mitzrayim. Then we become free. And still we had to go 40 years in the desert to take out the vestige of slavery from ourselves, from our inner being. But the main thing that we need to do, the main ishtadlus that we needed to perform in order to get out of Mitzrayim, in order to get out of the spiritual death grip, the terror that Paro had over us. It's the same thing with any kind of deliverance that a person needs to get today, to get out of poverty, to get into a relationship, a person needs to do an ishtadlus of acting against the fear, to do what is something which is counterintuitive to his fear. Am Israel were the slaves of the Egyptians. They were like the Gestapo of the Egyptians. They were like the SS in the camps. And they were terrified from them. The mitzvah in Shabbos Hagadol was they take the lamb, which is the idol of Mitzrayim. I don't know what you call it, taking the picture of Hitler or whatever it is. You take the equivalent in the Second World War and put it as flooring in the lateran, in the lateran, in the bathroom, in the Besakisa, whatever is dear to them. And basically, they're going to shecht the idols of Mitzrayim. For 4 days, they were standing tied to the beds of the Israelites, and they were crying. The Egyptians heard that. The SS, that they were here, and they couldn't do anything. The fact that they couldn't do anything doesn't mean that the Eden were not afraid. They were afraid. As we see, they ran out of Mitzrayim. The minute they saw the Egyptians chasing them, they panicked. But they acted out of their fear. That is the miracle of Shabbos Hagadol. That is the shtadlus that everybody needs to do in order to be delivered. You have to act opposite, counterintuitive to the fear that you feel. Then you can get to live. Somebody wants to get into a relationship, is afraid, maybe she won't like me, maybe I'll have a bad marriage, maybe I'll be like that with my parents, maybe this or maybe that, and maybe I'll go to the doctor and I have all bad news, whatever. The main thing is you go the opposite of what the fear is. You're against the grain. That is the tsarusa del tasa the person needs to do in order to get the tsarusa del ela, the awakening from above, and the deliverance. And with that, Bezat Hashem, we can get to the Maisa of the Baal Shem HaKodesh. The Baal Shem HaKodesh were machazik all his Talmidim. When a person knows that Hashem is Baruch is Melok Kol Haaretz Kevoidoi, every single movement, every single thought comes from Hashem Baruch, he will be able to understand that really there's no machitza that separates him from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And a person has to daven a lot for Hashem to open up his eyes, to be able to receive everything with love and say thank you for everything. And will bless and praise the HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the good and the bad, and will believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is with him. And Mimela, everything is going to turn out terrible. This is an extremely important principle. Whenever it is that the person feels that he is in a crucible, in a death grip of something that there's nowhere to turn, not to the left and not to the right. It's nobody can help me, nothing can help me, so forth and so on. And the first thing the person needs to do is actually close himself in a room and tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu, start with a session of thank you. Thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, things just the way they are. That's the first thing. Then comes, please help me with what I need. I need somebody. I feel like I need somebody to come and help me. or I need this, or I need that. But before I said thank you for just the way it is. And now I'm asking Hashem, please help me remove this, do that. How do these two things jive? And the answer is it doesn't matter. By Kodesh Baruch Hu, everything is possible. I'm thanking Kodesh Baruch Hu that that's the way it is, and I'm asking Kodesh Baruch Hu to fix things for me. The two things contradict each other. Okay, it's a Kodesh Baruch Hu's problem, it's not mine. I'm saying thank you, and I'm asking for help, both at the same time. So it is said about a certain Yid that came to Baal Shem HaKodesh and told him, whatever it is that hurts him, Baal Shem Tov said, if you will receive everything that comes onto you with love, you'll have oil mazeh and oil mabo. Because when a person davens to HaKodesh Baruch Hu, to be zorchet to receive and accept everything with love, and to thank HaKodesh Baruch Hu, with a full heart, for everything is going on just the way it's going on. That takes away the tzar. It's boduk u'menusa. I cannot reiterate it enough. When you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the way things are, the tzar of the way things are becomes gone. It is expunged. Even if the situation itself does not change, because the thing is that the thing that we are bemoaning, if we're honest with one another, is not so much about why things are the way they are. The thing that upsets us the most is the fact that we are upset by the way things are. We would all love to accept everything b'ahava. The problem is we're not able to accept things b'ahava, therefore, we're moaning and whatever it is. The name of the game is when you come and you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the more you're able to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for things being what it is, it takes out the stink of tsar. Many times that is the only thing which is necessary, even to change the entire situation. Because many times when a person is discombobulated, he only makes things worse for himself. He's trying to fix things and he's all making it worse. Because really what he's trying to do is trying to push away the pain, trying to push away the suffering. If you thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will take the suffering away from that, whether the situation changes or it doesn't change. And the thing is, everything is good. If you don't have any tsar from the situation, it's okay. That's the way Hashem wants it. Ma baya. So it says that one time the Baal Shem HaKodesh went with one Zif Talmidim in a place where there was no water. I mean, all around, like miles and miles, no water. And his Talmud was thirsty, to the point of a sakana. So he said to the Baal Shem HaKodesh, that he's extremely thirsty. Baal Shem HaKodesh didn't say anything. So the Talmud says that he saw that he is coming to actual danger. He says, Rebbe, I'm extremely thirsty and I feel, that, I'm in life danger. So Baal Shem HaKodesh told him, do you believe that just now Kodesh Baruch Hu created the world, and if Kodesh Baruch Hu was created the world right now, do you believe that he would see your problem and he would prepare water for you to drink? So the Talmud reflected and says, yes, I believe Bivadai. Hashem told them, wait a little longer. And they went, they kept on traveling, and they saw a goy carrying two large vessels with water. They met him, they gave him a few pennies for the water, and he gave him to drink. So the Baal Shemtov asked him, why are you walking here in the wilderness, carrying this water on your shoulders? So the guy said, I don't know, believe me, I don't know. My boss went nuts. And he sent me to bring water from a specific fountain that is very, very far. And I'm already carrying these water jugs for over 3 miles, and I have absolutely no idea why I'm doing it. Baal Shem Tov told his Talmud, you see the Shgocha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He created for you a Michigan funeral ward. I mean, that will, that for no reason at all, will go nuts and to bring you water. All this HaKadosh Baruch Hu foresaw when he has created the world. Rabbi Ephraim of Sadlikov's is Rabbi Nachman's uncle. He says that the Baal Shem HaKadosh, his grandfather, was talking about Emunah. That's the Klal Gadol of Avodas Hashem. This is the root of all the Avodah and all the Torah. The main tefillah and the mitzvah is the Emunah. That is the thing that elevates the Shekhinah. But Hashem Ad Kan, story from the Baal Shem HaKadosh. As we know, stories from Baal Shem HaKadosh. Says Gula to have a great week. We definitely need a great week. We have Pesach coming. It's Hashem, which Baruch Hu needs to save us from Mashul Chometz, Pesach, and that's from Sipurey Baal Shemtov. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'll just take a sip of this, and then a couple of short stories here. About miracles that Baruch Hashem happened to Am Yisrael. He says this specific Ma'aser, it's a Ma'aser Tzadikim. Let's see, where is it? Who is actually beyond that wrote this? I'm not sure who it is that wrote this. Anyhow, it's definitely at least a century and a half or 2 centuries old. Anyhow, and he says this is a Ma'aser Nifla that I found in a book, that it was mekubal by the person who wrote it. This Ma'aser that happens from his forefathers. He says that there used to be in the olden days that there was a king, a great king that ruled over many lands, and his minhag was, like the Romans used to do, whatever it is, at every land he would put an overseer, like a grand minister, a grand vizier, or whatever you want to call it. And he gave him the koyach to do whatever it is that he saw fit in order to rule the land for him. And it so happens in one of the lands, he put a minister that was Metzera Amalek, Hashem Yerachim. And he knew it. That person knew it. He had a Kabbalah, whatever it is, he knew it. And as he became a grand minister, that's the time he's going to take care of the Jews. And he called all the generals of his army in that land, and he told them in confidentiality, this is what he wants to do. He says, when the days of Purim will come, and the Jews are very happy, and this in the middle of the Simcha, to make a pogrom, Lo Aleinu, and the armies will follow them and kill them, all of them, men, women, and children. Mamish, the way was the Gzera of Haman and Rosh and Walidu. And after that, a few of the minister of the army, the generals, came to a Yid that was a bar, was an inn, whatever, and they asked him to give him wine. He gave them, he gave him wine. They wanted more, until they got drunk, and they wouldn't pay. So they asked him to give him more wine, and the Jews there is not giving them. So they got angry with him. He says, one of the inebriated generals saying, "You are so stupid that you don't know what give him more to drink. As is everything that you own is going to be ours soon." And that Jew became extremely afraid. And he gave him more. He gave him more drunk. So he asked one of them, "Listen, tell me the truth. What is this that you're saying that soon everything that I own will become yours?" So he told him. He was drunk enough, He told him the story. Immediately he heard, he became deathly afraid. And he saw he has a chesed elyon, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has helped him out. And immediately he told all the Jews in his state about what's going on. And he had this Givaldig Gezerah. And the Eitzah was that in Purim, they will not conduct themselves besimcha. All the Purim except, B'Seser, they should not light a candle in Leil Purim. And B'ezrat Hashem, they'll be able to be saved from this Gzerah, Hashem. Because the Goyim will not have any reason, to ambush them, because you see, they're not rejoicing, they're not celebrating the Ovdan of Amalek. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu had other plans. The king of all the different lands decided he's going to go to his other lands. He knew that the people around him, all the gatekeepers had an axe to grind. He was surrounded with sycophants and flatterers that told him whatever it is that he wanted to hear. So what he would do is he would disguise himself. That was we have quite a few stories like that of kings that disguise themselves and go, to the lands that were under them to see how the generals, how the governors that they put on these countries, how they behave. Because, the reports that they get are obviously doctored, and everybody is pulling and making sure that he looks the best in the reports. Let's see what is actually going on. And he came to that land. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu made it so that the king came to that land, Dafka on Purim, to that town where this wine cellar, this Jewish wine cellar lived. Being that Tzeicher was a well-to-do man, the king decided, this is where he wants to stay. I'm saying, whatever it is. And at night, being that the Jews did not light any candles, the whole town was dark. So the king asked the Jews, Baal Achsania, why is everything so dark? Why is everything so quiet? That's your holiday. You have a holiday today, great simcha. Now the Jews didn't know this was the king, and he was afraid to tell them the truth. And he says, no, it's so many years past, and it's galus, and it's exile, and so this whole Indian of lighting and Purim, whatever it is, was forgotten. It's no longer kept. So the king understood that this is just an excuse. And he said to him, why are you cheating me? Why are you deceiving me? I'll let you know I'm the king. And you tell me the truth. And don't be afraid of anything. So he told them the whole Indian. And immediately when the king heard this, he became very upset. And he revealed himself as the king and immediately called all the ministers, that in that town, generals of the army, the functionaries, and told them immediately to send messengers all the parts of the land in the order of the king, that not one person should harm any of the Jews, and to guard them, their body and their possessions, the best way possible. And anybody who doesn't do it, in Hashem Yirachem, says Hashem Doma Beroisha. And the Jew of Baal Achsania, that Jew where the king stayed, the king said that he told them, send letters to all the Jews to celebrate Purim, and make Yemei Sosan V'Simcha twice as much, and I will pay for it. So, okay, I will give money from the Melucha that they will celebrate double, and don't be afraid of anything. And also, he ordered the Jew that will let him know when the time when they're reading the Megillah in the shul in the morning, and he wants to be there when the Megillah is going to be read, together with the minister, the governor of that state, of that Medina. And that's the way it was when the king came with the governor to the shul while they're reading the Megillah. After the reading, the king asked them, I want you to translate the Megillah, my language, so I can understand it. And when they finished, the king said, you should praise and glorify your Hashem that saved you from the heads of Haman and Rasha, and from the hands of this Haman and Rasha, the governor that was right there with him in the shul. And he said the very same way that in the Megillah, the king gave reshus to the Jews to hang Haman on a tree. I'm giving you the reshus to hang this man, this governor, to hang this Haman and Rasha on a tree, and that's what they did. Hashem, to all the Yehudim. Okay, I had to count this particular story. And now let's get a little bit to the biography for Arizal. We'll speak a little bit. This is the time Arizal comes to Tzfas. So basically, Eliyahu Navi told him, it's time for you to go. You have to become known in the town of Tzfas. And he said that Arizal was upset about it. He says, I know how difficult it is for you, to tell your secrets to others, but in Tzfas you will find a person by the name of Rabbi Chaim Vital, and you will put your hands on him, and you give him his chokhmah. And Chaim Vital, he will be the one, to receive your chokhmah. He will write your Torah, and he will make it known. And you should know that the reason why you came to the world was only to teach your Torah to Rabbi Chaim Vital, because his neshama is extremely, extremely precious. In the Sefer Sha'ar Gilgulim, Rabbi Chaim Vital writes about his own neshama, what he heard. Rabbeinu Arizal, who was a Gilgul of Rabbi Akiva, and a lot of tremendous yesodis for his neshama. So this is how Arizal was still sitting in Egypt. He was learning, and his uncle was taking care of him. Rabbi Navi told him, don't worry about it. In Tzfas, you'll be able to live the way you lived in Egypt, and I will come and reveal myself to you. And what's more, The land of Egypt is Tumadik. Eretz Yisrael is Eretz Yisrael, it's Advus Kodesh, and you will hear and you will get secrets which here you cannot get. And the Arizal went to Eretz Yisrael and he went to Tzfas. What was going on at Tzfas at that time? That was, the flowering, probably one of the best periods ever in Tzfas. The Ottoman conquest, revived Eretz Yisrael literally at that time. And Tzfas became one of the most successful flourishing hills. And Gdol Yisrael came to Chochmei Torah, and they basically bequeathed tremendous treasures of Torah. And Am Yisrael, the Torah, that particular generation is mamish light for all generations on the exile to teach our people how to go. We have Reb Chaim Vital, of course, was there. Yosef Kara was there. And that particular, if you want to understand like what was going on, so Tzfas at that particular point in time when the Arizal came, so the Rebbe was Arizal. The Rav of the town was Rabbi Yosef Kara, the Baal Shulchan Aruch. The Chazan in the Besmedrash was the Baal Chadoidi. He was the Chazan Besmedrash. And the Gaba in the Shul was the Baal Sefer HaCharedim. You can imagine what kind of generation that was. And the Turkish authorities have made Tzfas to be the main thoroughway in the Galil. B, that it was exactly, on the roads that went to Damascus and to Akko and to Sidon. I mean, all these are, port cities in the north of Eretz Yisrael, and it was basically a very comfortable route to all these port cities. That in turn brought a lot of merchants, to Tzfas, and they started developing their connections with many states. Tzfas was flourishing. They were like on the hills and the mountains of Tzfas were covered with flocks of lambs, and the fertile land of the Galilee was teeming with livestock. The wool was industry, and they were made incredible garments, from the milk. They made, milk products, especially the famous, Tzfas cheese, which is famous. The olive trees to produce wonderful oil, and so forth and so on. It became very, very, and Jews from all over the world heard about it, and they started coming there as well. There were quite a few reasons. First of all, obviously, the economic flourishing of the town was amazing. It basically promised parnasa b'kavod to everybody who came there. The authorities treated a shulta, governing of Chesed. It protected the Jews that were there. The air of Tzfas, I don't have to tell you what the air of Tzfas is like. But more than anything was the Kedusha. The Kedusha of Tzfas at that particular time was astonishing. The cascading, the waterfall of Kedusha or spirituality that came down, especially at Tzfas at that time, has created unprecedented spiritual treasures of Torah in Am Yisrael. And it is the rule that when the Kedusha gets, a plenty of bounty from above, that the Goyim also, get from the residue, whatever is left over, they get as well. So it's from that time that Arizal got all his Torah Kabbalah in Tzfas, and Reb Chaim and Rabbi Yosef Karo wrote the Shulchan Aruch. and before that was the Ramak, Moshe Cordovero, was his, and all the Kedusha came from that. At that time, the Goyim had in Italy, they had the Renaissance, which is, I don't have to tell you, is a flowering of the Goyish culture, the way that is unprecedented before or after. When you check and see what was going on, what they were able to produce, when you're trying to compare, even in art, what was produced beforehand and what was produced during the Renaissance to what was produced after the Renaissance, there's no comparison at all. You see that there's a burst of spiritual attainment that was unprecedented before or after. The same thing, by the way, happened during the time of the Baal Shemtov and Rabbeinu, because Rabbeinu, Baal Shemtov corresponds with the time of Bach, and Rabbeinu corresponds with the time of Mozart and Beethoven. And whatever artists during that time, there's Rembrandt, there's Vermeer, there's all those that came during that particular time. But they were not the only ones who were there. There's Sipurey Baal Shemtov, there's all the Galilee, all the Kvarim, and also the exile from Spain and Portugal, that didn't find a place to stay. They heard about, in Eretz Yisrael, it's a place that they can settle, and they came, and they rebuilt their lives. And an unknown Chacham that came in, the visited Tzfas in around the 1500s, was describing the Komis HaKadoshim around Tzfas, and this is what he wrote. Tzfas is in the upper Galilee, the land of Naphtali, and it's a city that is fortified in the top of a mountain, and around the mountain there are 4 mountains, and 2 of them they're all sitting, all Ishmaelim, all Muslims, the other 2, and every slope, the hearts of Jewish people, more than 300 Balabatim. They have 3 shuls, one of Sfardim, one of Muriskim. Muriskim, these are the Jews that never left Eretz Yisrael. They were natives of Eretz Yisrael, never left since the Churban Abayis. And one of them, of Na'arovim, these are the people from North Africa, and they call it Knesset of Eliyahu Zechor Latov, and there is a Kabbalah by them that Eliyahu and Novi used to daven there. Tzfas is a town that is filled with all the goodness, the best food, the best bread, the best wine, the best oil, and very cheap. You can buy everything in a time, he says, and there's so much of it that they take it to Damascus, they take it to other places. He says, if not that they would, that they can export this to other places, it would mamish be for free. There's so much of it. And there's so many Jews that are dealing with all of Schiras, and they're bringing Schiras from Damascus instead of Tzfas. And there isn't a single Jew that doesn't have enough money to be a businessman and to be a Baal Malacha, and they have many Melachos Tovos in the entire Eretz Yisrael. This is a book, it's called Oitzer Masoes, The Treasure of Journeys, Eisenstein, in page number 132. And in the Sefer of Shalos Tshuvos of Rabbeinu Rabbi Yosef Karo, we find it's written, when Hashem saw the poverty of his nations for over 1,500 years, they're away from their lands, and they're going from one kingdom to the other. He remembered the chesed of their forefathers, and they sat in the town of Tzfas. It is a tzvi to all the nations, and their leaders are behaving properly, and they're all taking care of the poor people and lom their Torah. And this is the vineyard of Hashem Tzvakos, and it's beautiful and it's pleasant. And Parcha Gefenes Arimonim, Sheshivas, and the Talmidim, they're all learning, and Satan Ven Pega, and nobody hears any kind of trouble. The town became filled with people until the place was was too narrow. There were not enough of them. They started building a lot, and there's a lot of shalos and chuvas during that time. The Sefer Africa Sochel about it, being that the houses, there was not enough housing. They asked the government to build, and they actually built it, and they sent messengers to Constantinople, to Turkey, and they came. They spoke with people who had diplomatic influence, and they're able to effect. And after some years, and they were able at that particular time, they were able to do that. But a few years later, Damascus, with the new governor, Turkish governor to Damascus, came and he saw the situation in Tzfas. He saw this is talking impossible. He decided to build, housing there, from the idea that he will be getting rent from them. And this is what it is. And they put Rabbi Moshe Tabas to buy all the lands around, on the top. And he gave him as a present to the governor. And this is how they built that neighborhood. And with them came all the Chachmei Torah, very famous Chachmei Torah that have, made their mark on the people living at that time and from that time on. Ad kan legave, the Indian of Sipurey Tzadikim. Let's take a quick look on the Sikha for tonight. It is very short and to the point. And this is 172. And he said, Shamati bishmoy, I heard from Rabbeinu's name. At one time, Nosan Talis Yoshan Shalo, he gave his old talis to somebody as a present. You can imagine what kind of Judaica it would be today if you could lay your hands on a talis that was owned by Rabbi Nachman of Breslin. He gave it to one of his important Talmidim, and Rabbeinu told him as follows, when he gave him the talis, be very careful to treat this talis with great respect, because as many strands of hair that there is in this talis, this is how many tears I have shed until I found out what talis was. The main nekuda that we need to learn from this, it is we take it for granted with all these great tzaddikim. It's like they came to this world perfect, like an extraterrestrial, some kind of astronaut, somebody that comes. The Rebbe is somebody that comes to this world, a tzaddik. He's perfect, and that's the stachlis that people have. Many Hasidim are the Rebbe. The truth of the matter is that there's a psychological need for that, and that is, leave me alone from having to deal with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. I have a Rebbe. The Rebbe is a tzaddik. He started off as a tzaddik. Usually they have this ma'isa that they say that you want to understand what the Rebbe is. Once a person climbed a mountain, and he climbed and climbed and climbed for 70 years until he got to a very, very high point in the mountain, and he sees a small child there. So the person says, I don't understand. How is it possible? I climbed for 70 years and I see a small child here. So they told him that small child was born here. And they're using it, to say, the kind of spiritual work that it takes a quote-unquote normal person 70 years, the Rebbe, whatever Chassidus it is, was already born with this Kedusha built in, and from here he goes weiter. It sounds like it's very nice, it's a tzaddikim and so forth and so on. But truth of the matter is that what it is, first of all, it's good, Baruch Hashem, people have a tzaddikim, but the truth is that what it does, it absolves people from the responsibility of actually dealing with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. I don't need to worry about it. I live in a certain kind of reality. It's like people are married. How's your marriage? It's okay. We exist. In housing Kehillah, you learn to, we exist. In housing with the Rebbe, whatever it is, we exist. I have a problem, I go ask the Rebbe, and whatever it is. And I go to Tish. I go to this, and then, I live. When you're starting to tell a person, Kodesh Baruch Hu listens to you, Kodesh Baruch Hu hears you, Kodesh Baruch Hu wants you the way that he wants your Rebbe. He wants you to come to him. You need to work. This is very threatening. What, you want me to start dealing with that? I remember years ago, I told you this story more than once. Years ago, I remember I was speaking to a Yid, held himself to be a Chassidish Yid. He told me flat out, Kodesh Baruch Hu doesn't hear our prayer. And I said, excuse me? I said, yeah. David HaMelech said, Kol Hashem l'chol korav, Hashem is close to all those who call him. L'chol asher kiru be'emes, to all those who call him in truth. And he tells me, you want to tell me that you call HaKadosh Baruch Hu in truth? You capable of calling HaKadosh Baruch Hu in truth? The Tzadikim, the Rebbe, he can call HaKadosh Baruch Hu with truth. You can call HaKadosh Baruch Hu with truth. So I asked him, so what do you do with the first half of the pasuk? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is close to everybody who calls him. So I said, Haknish Kanchainik, just leave me alone with your Narishkeit. It's a system. Leave me alone. I don't want to deal with it. It is a very common affliction by people who are from. They get along very nicely with Torah. They get along very nicely with Rabbanim. They get along very nicely with Yiddishkeit and all its facets. There's only one thing they can't get along with. They don't know what to do with. That's the Kodesh Baruch Hu. What do you do with the Kodesh Baruch Hu? And you go to shul, you from the siddur, you say what you say, you close the siddur, you put it there, and you leave it alone. The Rebbe deals with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, whatever it is. And me, what do you want from me? Rabbeinu comes and teaches us. He says, I had to shed tears as many strands of hair there is in this talus to understand where the talus is before. Obviously, the understanding of Rabbeinu and the talus is a whole different kind of level. But the point is, it works if you work it. And a chinami. The tzaddik is the tzaddik. But it doesn't mean that the tzaddik is somebody who's automatically pre-born a tzaddik. Already a tzaddik. You have absolutely no chance of ever being a tzaddik. You just, just do what give money to the Rebbe, come to the Tishon, behave yourself, wear the levush, and don't think. That's it. Up to here. Anything about it is not up to you. That's not Yiddishkeit. Yiddishkeit is you have to work. And Achinami, you can't do it without the tzaddik. But the tzaddik cannot do it without you. You have to shed tears to find out what the talus is. You have to shed tears of Kodesh Baruch Hu to bring it to the Torah. You have to shed tears of Kodesh Baruch Hu to bring it to the tzaddik. B'ezrat Hashem, now we have to shed tears. B'ezrat Hashem, Kodesh Baruch Hu should help save us. Mimashu chometz b'Pesach. B'ezrat Hashem. So I usually, not everybody comes on Monday nights when we have Sipurey Baal. So those who won't be with us, I want to wish you Chag Kosher V'Sameach. That Hashem Kodesh Baruch Hu should help save you from Mashu Chometz and the Seder, and let Hashem go out, become free, Gashmis, Beruchnis, and everything that you need, and Kol Tuv B'ezrat Hashem to you and everybody.